Time now for the voice of the land on the Big Play Network with your hosts, Kevin Arnold and Always Positive Jay.
Joining us now via Zoom, it is the co-founder and CEO of the Cleveland Pro Soccer Group, trying to bring a women's professional soccer team here to Cleveland, trying to help expand the game, make it more accessible. He is U.S. Army captain, and thank you for your service, Michael. It is Michael Murphy. I always have to say thank you because my grandfather was in World War II and taught me what it means to be a military person. And I know that it's always tough to hear thank you, but thank you for your service, and thank you for joining us here tonight.
I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and talk about our project here.
So, Michael, I mean, I'm definitely the soccer aficionado if we're just looking at the three of the guys here.
Of Northeast Ohio.
No, not
Yeah,
Jay.
he is. Don't let him be humble. Yeah, he
Jay,
is.
stop, please. But I know what you guys are doing, and the NWSL, of course, is the Women's Professional League. We're trying to bring a team here. But just take us back. Where did this mission start? Why the sport of soccer? What is it about that you think resonates here in the city of Cleveland?
Yeah, no, thanks. It's a great question. It's a fair question because the game has not been in my life like it's been in your life for a lot of people's lives for a long time. I in a previous lifetime after the Army, I had a company with my business partner then and today, Nolan Gallagher. He started Gravitas Ventures. It was a film distribution company. We started in Los Angeles, ran it for about 15 years, moved the entire company back to Cleveland in 2019. Had a couple successful exits from that company. In November of 21 is when we had the last exit. It was around that time that we became aware that Cleveland was the last top 20 market in the country without professional soccer. I did not know that. And we thought that was interesting. And there was an idea that we had to build a stadium. I thought that was interesting. And Nolan and I are very much Clevelanders through and through. We wanted to move our business back here. We wanted to be part of the business community and part of the economic job creation opportunity in Cleveland. And I'm going to speak personally now. I was looking to do something transformative for the region in the third quarter of my life, so to speak. And the more I looked at soccer, the more I said, this is fascinating. This is a global game that's missing here in Cleveland, both on the men's and women's side. The facilities are missing. And, this country is about to see the biggest growth in popularity in soccer it's ever seen, with the World Cup coming in 26, likely the Women's World Cup in 27 or 31, and the Olympics in 28, where, women's soccer is always a marquee event. So, we said it's a good opportunity. We did a lot of diligence on various leagues we could join. We're thrilled that we announced in November of 22, MLS Next Pro being able to come to Cleveland. But at that same time, we knew that the bigger get, candidly, would be to bring an NWSL club to Cleveland, the 16th team. And so we've been squarely after that. But, long term, I think it's going to be a great for Cleveland to be in the mix, to have a seat at the global game that is soccer, especially what this country is about to go through. And I don't want us on the sidelines for this. And I just see it as a huge opportunity. And, it's a huge opportunity, again, to bring an NWSL club to Cleveland. It would be the 16th team in that league. I not only think of that league as the best soccer league, women's soccer league in the country, but I think of it as the best women's professional sports league in the world.
Well, that was my next question. I had a couple questions. I'm not the professional soccer guy, and you answered it. I was going to say, Kevin was telling me this is your league you're getting into, because soccer leagues for me get very confusing, and it's like the top notch is what pretty much.
It is. If you look at the league, it's where the stars play, right? So our U.S. women's national team has been a standout for decades now, despite our early exit recently, in the round of 16 in the last World Cup. But on that U.S. national team, 22 out of the 23 women play in the NWSL. So the stars of U.S. soccer play in this league. So we want the Alex Morgan, Sophia Smith, Trinity Rodman to be playing in Cleveland, or maybe play for Cleveland. So that's one thing. The other thing is that league has seen unprecedented growth right now. Last year, they averaged about 10,400 fans. That's a 40% year-over-year growth. Ratings were up 32%. On nationally televised games, it's really interesting. They're not at parity with MLS yet, but they're not far behind. What's far behind are the dollars still. The dollars and sponsorship and broadcast rights are still much larger in the men's game. But the NWSL is catching up quickly with this new historic media rights deal, which is like 40 times more than the last one. But key there is who's picking up these rights. So kicking off in March, it's going to be Amazon, ESPN, CBS, and Ion. And as I mentioned in a previous lifetime, we were at Gravitas Ventures. We sold a lot of movies to Amazon. And I'll tell you one thing about that company is that they know more about their customers and more about what will scale globally in terms of content than really anyone. So, we think this is a really big opportunity for, the ownership group to invest alongside industry heavyweights like Amazon and Apple, who's carrying the men's on Major League Soccer, and also for our, our city, county, and state to invest alongside those heavyweights too in getting this facility done.
Michael Murphy, CEO, co-founder of Cleveland Pro Soccer, is our guest. Michael, I got to ask, I don't know how much you can divulge into, but where does this process, this push to bring NWSL professional soccer outside of of course, MLS Next Pro coming in 2025, but especially on the women's side, where does that stand, or what processes are you guys going through to try to bring that next team in NWSL here to our own backyard?
So the process is being run by the league. It's a formal process that they run. They kicked it off last November. The commissioner, Jessica Berman, actually gave a press conference right before the championship game of NWSL. It was in mid-November, and said, hey, we're going to kick off a process to add a 16th team in 2026 to the league. And she said there's a lot of competition out there. So there's at least a dozen qualified markets. And she said she only mentioned two by name, Cleveland and Denver. And so, we had raised our hand previously. Yeah, I know. Here, we got to go beat them again. But, it's a competitive process. But what Cleveland has that a lot of markets don't have is, and candidly, we're behind, but we can use that to our advantage this time because there's no professional soccer here. So if the league were to come to Cleveland, they would be the top soccer brand in a major market, in a top 20 market. That's really interesting for that league. Gives them a lot of runway to be the top brand. And, more so, they're only going to come here if we're successful in putting together a stadium plan.
It's a big reason we talk soccer. One, yep. Kevin loves it. I'm learning it. But I know that it has a huge following. And every podcast in this area, they talk the same thing. All Browns, a little bit of Cavs, a little bit of Indians, Browns. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to support people like you, and we're going to talk soccer because that's going to be our niche, as we know they're out there. Tons of fans that want to listen to us. Same thing. Like, if we're the only one, we're hoping to get more listeners. If you're the only team, you're going to get more fans, obviously. It makes perfect sense.
The passion for the game runs deep in Northeast Ohio. In Ohio, it's been a hotbed of soccer for a long time. We've had a lot of great soccer here. It's kind of been fractured a little bit because there hasn't been a top professional team for good soccer players to develop and roll up to. We do not have currently in Northeast Ohio a pro player pathway like they do in Columbus, for example. You've got kids commuting down to Columbus a few days a week just to be in the Cruise Academy down there because we don't have that type of process here. But we aim to change that both on the men's and the women's side eventually. But it starts not just with youth, but it goes back years and years where this city and this region was built on a lot of proud ethnic groups, whether it's the old school Croatians or Slovenes or Irish or
I'm from Slavic Village, man. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Soccer's huge. The Polish or the newer immigrants, whether it's Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Ukrainians in Parma, soccer is the common language. And so we really want to make sure that we're reaching out to all these groups, and we've been doing it, to let them know we're here and let them know that this is something that Clevelanders can rally behind together as a common denominator. We want to be bilingual from the jump. That's a huge opportunity for us to capture, that audience in Cleveland, whether it's or outside of Cleveland. Huge Mexican populations in Painesville, in Lorraine. Soccer is in that culture, in that blood. And candidly, the U.S. our federation is doing a great job with the Mexican Federation right now, promoting Leagues Cup cross play that we have a bid in with the Mexican Federation for the Women's World Cup. It's a really exciting time for this game in this country, in this continent.
Michael Murphy, CEO, co-founder of Cleveland Pro Soccer Group, joining us talking about trying to bring NWSL, the Women's Pro Soccer League, the best pro soccer league on the women's side, here to Cleveland. And Michael, Jay keeps saying it, and the passion that runs deep. I'm one of those people. Through my veins, soccer runs as deep as it possibly could through me. I've loved this sport since I was 5 years old, seeing a video of David Beckham and going to the crunch camps. We'll get into the crunch here in just a minute. But what you guys are trying to do, especially bringing a women's pro league here, everybody's unfairly seen women's sports in the past as a separate entity, and yet it is as pure as the men's side. It's to me, it's just sport. And I've coached girls, I've coached them at the youth level, I've coached boys, I've coached this sport so much. And what are you guys trying to do from a youth growth in the game standpoint? Because I saw this on your guys' website. I've been doing a lot of research. I know you guys want to make it more accessible to the youth and stuff. How are you guys trying to use this platform to also grow the game on the youth side?
Sure. So, and that's one of the things, as I mentioned, I reached out when I first started looking at this. One of my mentors and my theology teacher from 30 some years ago at St. Ignatius, Mike McLaughlin, has grown, arguably one of the better programs in the country for high school boys soccer. And he helped me a lot understanding the game and the leagues and youth and accessibility. And that's always been a thing for him, is accessibility. And, I'm going to paint with a very broad brush here for a second. Soccer in this country has historically been a white suburban sport. It's not that way anymore. Look at our national teams. It's very diverse. There's still an accessibility issue. And one of the things we want to do is close that gap by doing what's happening around the country. The U.S. Soccer Federation has a goal to put 1,000 mini pitches into this country. Think of a mini pitch as a small soccer playing area, like on a harder surface. Futsal can be played there. And, until 3 or 4 months ago, we didn't have any in Cleveland. Now we have the first one over at Urban Community School at Refugee Response. They're actually now called Resource. We've got 2 more coming online with partners. Black Players for Change is helping these as well in the city of Cleveland. But we want to do more of those as part of this. But also then, just reach out and let the have had a lot of success just reaching out to clubs and letting them know what we're doing and why their support is important. We have this Back the Bid campaign going on right now. And that's us being very public, saying, hey, we're Cleveland, we're here, we want a club. And the Back the Bid campaign is all about showing the league that there's real demand for this product here in this market, because it's going to be a competitive environment. Last time this process went through, there were 82 different markets or 82 different groups that were vying for a couple of spots. And, women's professional sports has only grown in popularity. You mentioned that it's maybe been looked at as a second-class citizen in terms of professional sports for a long time, or a third or fourth-class citizen. It has not even come close, but we are clearly at an inflection point right now, I think, in women's sports, not just professional sports, but also amateur sports. We're about to host the Women's Final Four here in Cleveland. And if you don't think women's sports are big and popular, just talk to me in mid-April, because you're going to hear
look
it.
at the basketball all-star game with Sabrina and...
I was going to say, that was
what's his name? She having the shootout contest.
On a weekend where a lot of people criticize what happened in Indianapolis with the NBA All-Star Weekend. The one thing that everybody came out glowing remarks of was Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu of the New York Liberty, and that shedding a light and crowds growing for the WNBA.
She went toe-to-toe with the greatest shooter of all time.
Caitlin Clark in college basketball is the thing you have to go see. It's not a player on the men's side. It's Caitlin Clark, and then you're seeing all these other players, the players with LSU, Angel Reese and Haley Van Lith. The names go on and on and on.
Like he said, he brought up when the women's team went out early this year. Dude, everyone was really mad about that. They were like, "Oh, we're better than this."
But it shows the talent around the world.
It's because they cared. That's why they were mad. When our men's league would go out, everyone's like, "Oh, we're out. We're supposed to be out." But when the girls' team went out, we were like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" Like, that's a respectable soccer team there. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to ask you. My uncle is actually the scoreboard engineer for the Columbus Crew. How close of a stadium's do you guys plan on making a stadium close to what that's like, or something on a smaller scale? What is your guys' envisionment for a stadium? Because we were talking stadiums earlier today.
So if you're comparing it to lower.com, where the Crew plays now, I think that's about 21,000 capacity. It's either 21 or 23. What we're eyeing right now in Cleveland is something that's about 12,500. Ideally, we'd engineer it so it could be expanded in success, should we need that. But what we're trying to draw here, we think that's the right size. We think that venue fills a gap in our inventory here in Northeast Ohio. It could be used not just for, women's professional soccer, which is the primary tenant. Our next pro team can play there, but there's other users potentially of that facility too. whether it's high school or college sports or concerts or things like this. So we can really use it, for as many play dates as possible.
Yeah, I mean, and Cleveland State right there in the heart of downtown. Krensler Field is one of those staples, landmarks at Cleveland State and in the city of Cleveland. But to have a stadium like that with good programs on both the men's and women's side at even a school like Cleveland State, using that and drawing more and more people, I think, and creating tournaments and being able to end tournaments there, I think is a huge thing. Michael Murphy.
And I'll give you
Yeah,
one
go
example. I was just going to say, with Cleveland State, for example, they have one of two D1 men's lacrosse teams in the state. The other one's at Ohio State. And so every year, almost, Cleveland State plays Air Force, Notre Dame, Ohio State, always on the road. We don't have a facility here in Cleveland where they could play a home game. So that would be kind of cool in the future to be able to host ND right here in downtown Cleveland in men's lacrosse. Things like that.
And I love you talking about that because, our conversation, I know the conversation recently has been around Brown Stadium, the football stadium that we care about here is the, European style of football, the original style of football that is soccer as it's known here in America, and a stadium for that. But a stadium designed to have multi-purpose with it already instead of having it so closed off and just putting it up to put it up. I think it's great you guys are having these conversations about a stadium that can have expansion and can have multiple uses and open up avenues for not just soccer here, but other sports and other things here in the city of Cleveland.
Yeah, you look at the MAC, for example. They're going to be hosting their Final Four at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, a neutral site for that conference. It draws a lot of people. The MAC has women's soccer. The MAC has women's lacrosse. That's an opportunity for them to potentially host in a neutral site, and it's all about creating economic impact downtown too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that is a lot of tax dollars that'll help Cleveland a lot.
Yeah, and that's what the city of Cleveland is looking for. Michael Murphy, the CEO, co-founder of Cleveland Pro Soccer Group. You talked about back the bid. That's kind of the push right now. So want to give you a chance to kind of talk about how other people can get involved. I would love to be as involved as possible with this because soccer is where my roots are, especially calling the games now with the crunch. Those were the only games my family could afford to go to, and we only had professional indoor soccer. Imagine kids, whether it's boys with the MLS Next or girls seeing an NWSL team, actual professional players they see on TV, seeing them more regularly right in front of them. How can people get involved to make this push to back the bid and make Cleveland the standout and that NWSL just cannot ignore?
Sure. So the back the bid effort is, again, showing demand for the product here for the NWSL to be in Cleveland. And so the idea is that we're trying to get a team in 2026. And so for $26, you can get the back the bid t-shirt. And it's part of our loyal CLE. You also get the social media assets. You get on the mailing list, and then you get an opportunity to pledge tickets. You don't have to pay for tickets, but it's like, if I were to get season tickets, I might get 2, or I might get 4 for my family or something like that, to give us a sense. And then we can go back to the league and say, look at how many tickets we have pledged already for a team that doesn't exist in a stadium that doesn't exist. And that shows real passion. And it's, the back the bid campaign has been, growing steadily throughout since we kicked it off last year. And I think some people, started to say, what is this? But it's starting to feel a little bit more real. On February 3rd of this year, we had, it was National Girls and Women's Sports Day. And serendipitously, that was the same day that the Ohio House of Representatives passed, a bill with their new capital allocations. And there was one line item in there that said Cleveland Women's Professional Soccer Stadium. And so that's real. And it's great that the state came in first, even before kind of the city and the county. We're working very closely with this public-private partnership. It's going to be, 3 legs of the stool, the state, the city, and the county. We all have to kind of get on the same page as to how this can come together. But it's great that the state kind of came first because, we've spent a lot of time saying that this is really Ohio's team. And, candidly, funding for, women's professional sports venues has been not only underfunded, but it's been non-existent, really. And so this is an opportunity for an equity play, and it's very, reasonably, it's a reasonable investment for our region.
So make sure you guys head on over to, I believe is it clevelandprosoccer.com?
Yes, I should give you the clevelandprosoccer.com. You can sign up, click right there. Have your friends and family join, take pictures with yourself. We went from zero, it's a startup essentially, right? So we went from 0 on social media to, it's out there and it's an important part. And we're doing as much as we can to show that the passion and show people they have an outlet for this passion that you share with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know that there's plenty of passion that, mirrors mine, or he's even deeper than mine. I'm never going to say that I'm not going to say what Jay said, that I'm the soccer aficionado for Northeast Ohio, but
He is.
The passion, I am not the only one that has the passion run deep. So go over to clevelandprosoccer.com, back the bid. Let's show the NWSL that this city needs soccer, can use soccer, and of course continue to help build the youth leagues and the developing young players and showing them that we care and that there can be brighter days ahead with seeing some professional players, some of the best you've ever seen right here in our own backyard.